and welcome to Totally Schway Flipside, a podcast about whatever the hell I want it to be about. My name's Mary.
And my name is Luke.
And today we're going to talk about something that one of our listeners suggested. And his name is Doc.
Doc Widener.
Yeah.
Pretty certain it was him. We're going to come to his comment later on. He'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking
about.
You dreamed it. But...
Yeah. And what is the topic of today's conversation?
We're going to be talking about Batman music. I think he originally said, Doc Widener, I should say, suggested talking about Batman film music. But while we were talking about a bunch of different stuff, just now, Mary was like, oh, who did the soundtrack for Arkham Origins? Who did the soundtrack for Arkham City? Who did the soundtrack for the 66 show?
Even though Spotify was right in front of my face.
Yeah.
But I just asked.
Sometimes it's just easier to ask me than to actually look it up, right?
So, in advance, I'm going to say this. I'm sorry for the sniffles, but I am getting over what we believe is a viral infection. Because it's that time of year. If you go outside, you're going to catch something. And I went outside once, and I caught something.
Mm-hmm.
So, sniffles, deal with it. Or Luke will take them out. I don't know. Probably not. So let's get into it. What should we talk about? Can we start? Let's start from the beginning.
From the beginning?
1966.
Well, there was... something before that, but I don't recall the music from it at all. They did like 40s movie serials where it wasn't like a Batman theme or anything like that.
It would have been like an music. Orchestra big band thing, wouldn't it?
Like a dude with a piano.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe. I can't quite remember. I've only ever watched it once and I kind of turned it off because it had some kind of its time references to Japanese people. That's distasteful.
No, we love Japanese people.
But all right, so you want to start with the Adam West 66 show?
I think that would be the easiest because I honestly love the comics and stuff before that. The stuff that is not terrible of the time stuff.
You like the comics that don't have music. That's the problem.
I like the comics and stuff that are nice to everybody. Mm-hmm. But when you think of the music, or when I think of the music, excuse me, I think of it starts from the 66 Batman to all the way to Caped Crusader. So I want to talk about the 66 one.
Okay.
Not my favorite.
No, but it's probably the most recognizable and probably the most catchy theme tune, isn't it?
I hate this word.
What?
I absolutely hate this word.
What, iconic?
Yeah. It's iconic. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the, oh my God, those eyebrows are iconic. We will get to somebody's eyebrows later. And his name is Prince. And obviously everything about Prince was iconic. But this, you could play it to most people in the world and they'd be like, Batman, that's Batman. And they would know which Batman it was.
I mean, it helps because they say Batman in the lyrics, don't they?
No, I mean, if you just played the first...
Oh, just the... Yeah.
Because it is in everywhere. It's been in commercials. It's obviously been in the show. I don't know how many episodes that was, but it was for 2 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, 3 seasons.
3 seasons, okay. So about 2.5, 3 years. And it's been referenced in so many things.
Yeah.
And I think even I might be mistaken, but I think it has been referenced in SNL from like the one I'm thinking about is either the very late 70s or the very early 80s. But again, I could be wrong about the time.
I imagine it's been referenced at least once per decade. At least once. Someone's going to check this out for us.
Yeah. Because I don't want to watch old SNL episodes.
I should ask John Trumbull. He's not only is he a comic book journalist and expert on the DC animated universe, but he's also a Saturday Night Live enthusiast.
Yeah, we like Trumbull. The reason I don't want to watch the Saturday Night Live things is because when it comes to me trying to find something out, I have to watch like 10 episodes in a row because if I don't, I'm like, no, I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wish there was like an index of like each sketch. I'm sure there is. But when you think about this show, is there a particular scene that has like some sort of BAM!
I mean, every episode had a fight scene.
The scene that you has been referenced in our life 2 days in a row.
Well, there are several actually. There's the famous one where King Tut makes Batman dance. He puts him through some Egyptian torture, which is putting him in a big pot with his head poking out.
Okay.
And dropping grains of sand on his head for hours until millions of grains of sand have tapped on his head.
To be honest, I think that'd be quite relaxing.
Apparently, it was a form of torture.
Okay.
But he made Batman his slave then, although Batman was just pretending. But he was like, dance for my amusement, Batman. And they've got like a little jazzy number that incorporated the Batman theme tune.
But what is the phone one?
The phone one? Well, I don't think there was music.
There was no music. Okay,
no, so it's irrelevant. But I love the opportunity to talk about it. I found someone had recreated it in Lego. When was that? Yesterday, something like that. And I shared it on my Instagram stories for reference of people that actually listen to the podcast. But it's the Joker's on the phone talking to Batman. Mary's looking it up.
I'm not doing that. I'm looking up something else.
Wait, she's looking up a Batman movie timeline as if I wouldn't know it off the top of my head.
Well, you do. I don't.
Yeah, I know, but you could just ask me. But anyway, Joker's on the phone to Batman. And he says, "Oh, you talk a big game, Batman, but if you were here, I'd pound you to a pulp." Batman then pokes his head out from behind the curtain in the room and goes, "Start pounding, Joker." To which the Joker responds with a shrill scream of, "Ah!" Hilarious. Hilarious. Love it.
Hilarious.
The only music to my ears there is Cesar Romero's scream.
Cesar Romero. I'm going to say the word twice in the thing. Iconic.
With his painted moustache, yes. And yellow hair.
So, after the 66 Batman,
yeah,
I think of Batman 89.
Yes, that's right. That's pretty much
because
the jump.
Even now, I'm looking at a timeline, and I can't really think of... Like, if we were talking about Superman, I'd be like... But...
So there were two other Batman shows. There was The Adventures of Batman. This was obviously cartoon.
Okay.
Very low budget. I forget who made it. I want to say Hanna-Barbera, but it wasn't Hanna-Barbera. Might have been Filmation, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, I think it was Filmation. Very low budget. So the music is kind of, of its time and of that kind of show. Very similar to like Captain Caveman or Scooby-Doo, whatever. And then 10 years later, there was The New Adventures of Batman, which was very much in the same ilk. It was kind of like a light-hearted comedy show with Batmite as the weird little guy sidekick that just kept making mistakes and was the butt of all the jokes. But then you had Tim Burton's Batman in 1989.
Obviously, one of the best themes. It is so, especially if you're a millennial like me. I am kind of like a mid-millennial, if that makes sense. So I'm not an elder millennial. I am not. I might be married to somebody that is, but I am not. I am a middle millennial. I can hear that tune sometimes in my head. It's always around Halloween for me. I don't know why. I don't believe it came out around Halloween, but I think that's a lot of the times that I have seen it. When I was younger, it was around Halloween because it would just be playing on like one of the, the TV movie channels. And I always just hear it randomly. And then I just, it feels nice, but it's not my favorite.
It's funny. I was just trying to think of it in my head and it was playing in my mind, and then it turned into Danny Elfman's Batman, the animated series theme.
Yeah.
But obviously, they're intentionally similar.
Yeah.
And I had to really concentrate for a moment while you were talking then to get it back on track. And yeah.
I don't know if you heard, I kind of like faltered a little bit because I was like, get it back now in my head, because it kind of, I'm sure a lot of us that happens to, because it is so similar, but it's similar but different enough to know the difference between them.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And the very funny thing is about the music from Tim Burton's Batman. Okay, yes, Danny Elfman composed it, but the person that orchestrated it was Shirley Walker.
Well, of course.
And in her own words, the person that does the orchestrating is the less senior person, and they do all the work.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Elfman takes issue with this quite a bit, and he says, everyone says Shirley Walker did my Batman music, but it wasn't her, it was me. Shirley Walker said otherwise, and I'm more inclined to believe her.
Gotta be honest with you, loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to use the I word again, because I'm going to use an even better word for something coming up.
Okay.
But you know for a fact who carried that soundtrack.
You're going to say Prince, aren't you?
Oh, freaking course!
Mm-hmm.
Prince and Party Man. The best costume in any music video you will ever see. Half Prince, half Joker.
And again, it's a reference to Two-Face right there, so it's a double meaning.
Yeah. But Two-Face was not in the movie.
No, Harvey Dent was, though.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another matter for a different time.
But I'd actually never seen this music video until I moved over here, I think, because I never sought it out, because it's not something that it was readily available at the time to me to watch. But I think about it probably at least once a month.
Mm-hmm.
At least. And it's not in an, oh my god, that's annoying. It's an, oh my goodness, I could listen to the song. I'm not gonna, because it'll be stuck in my head for the rest of my life. But it is something that I think about in, I get, like, not good tingles, but almost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that was riveting for people to hear my explanation.
Well, if by now they aren't familiar with your explanation on things and they listen to this podcast, then I don't know what to say to them. No, all I was trying to say is people are used to the way you speak by now, surely.
So I'm looking at the Spotify playlist of, it has the Spotify playlist. I don't know if you guys know this. Sometimes you have like an official one, and then you have the official Spotify one. Well, I'm looking at the latter, and it's got a lot of stuff that actually isn't part of Batman 89. It's Batman, when you get further down, it's Batman 92. So Batman Returns.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think of something from these two movies, mm-hmm. I do get them mixed up sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, again, Danny Elfman's music he's got a very distinctive style, hasn't he? It's usually like, we've done this before, haven't we? Blinky, blonky, blinky, blonky, blinky, blonky. Yeah. I mean, that could be any of Danny Elfman's films. It could be Edward Scissorhands. Could be Men in Black.
I was thinking Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah. Could even be a bit of Batman Returns, where he was at his most Danny Elfman, I think.
Yeah.
But, Danny Elfman's music is good.
Is he won a Grammy?
I don't know.
Google this, because if he hasn't, something's wrong.
Well,
I mean, Beyonce just won a Grammy, okay?
He probably won one for Nightmare Before Christmas.
Years ago.
He's probably won awards for Nightmare Before Christmas. But I want to move on from Danny Elfman to the next person, who is obviously, as I alluded to moments ago, Shirley Walker.
Yes, we love some Shirley in this household.
Now, speaking of credit for their work, I should clarify that Shirley Walker was not the only composer on Batman the Animated Series. She was the supervisor, so she approved everything and people had to adhere to her style. But there were lots of people that worked on Batman the Animated Series soundtrack. Most notably, Christopher Carter, Lolita Ritmanis, Michael McQuistion, Harvey Cohen. Harvey Cohen did the jazz soundtrack.
Yeah, that was one of my faves.
So good. He also did the rock soundtrack for Last Son of Krypton, The Main Man in Superman the Animated Series, which I thought was really cool. But I believe there were about 15 or 16 young composers that she brought on to work on the soundtrack. Now, there's a practical reason behind this, because they had a very tight production deadline and they had a unique score for every single episode. There was no way that she would be able to do it all herself. She did a lot of it, but she didn't do it all herself. But she also had magnanimous reasons behind it. She brought on board inexperienced people so that they could get their first credit, and that was a very intentional thing on her part.
And you have to give her a standing ovation for that, because a lot of people, I mean, in the music, television, and film industry, they want to work with people that they know what their next step is. And for someone like Shirley Walker, who could have done that, she gave a lot of people opportunities that did not exist for them otherwise.
Yeah, and they may never have got without her.
And that is amazing. I think a lot of the animated series, in my opinion, a lot of the animated series that I've seen, I saw people that have worked on this, like on like BTAS and stuff like that. And that was like some of their first work. And then you see other animated shows that they're on, and it's just like, it goes from, that was the seed.
Yes.
And then they blossomed into other things. And it was great. And it was for people like Shirley Walker.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that Shirley Walker said towards the end of her life, she said that if she was working on a new project, she probably would only work with people she knew and wouldn't take a chance on youngsters anymore, because it was a lot of work and very difficult for her, very challenging. But, there's an award named after her.
Really?
In the film and television music sphere. I think it's the Shirley Walker Award. I believe that's what it's called. That is saved for outstanding achievement for women composers. And she's just phenomenal.
It's called the Shirley Walker Award.
The Shirley Walker Award honours those whose achievements have contributed to the diversity of film and television music. So there we go.
I think that's perfect. Because,
yes.
Again, looking at a lot of Batman stuff in general since the 1980s. I think it's very diverse, and it's something that wasn't. They didn't have to do that. It's because the people that loved this stuff were diverse, and it was a brilliant thing to do. Not just it's 1985, wet hot American summer, blonde tan girls, dark tanned guys, bad Jason monster. I don't know.
Well, for instance, in Tim Burton's Batman movie, they cast Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent. And that's a thing I like to point out at people that get upset about Caped Crusader changing the race of characters. They go, you can't do this, it's not allowed, it's never been done. And like, well, Eartha Kitt from the 1966 Batman TV show and Billy D. Williams from the 1980s Batman movie would like a word with you.
I love Eartha Kitt. Okay, so let's move on to...
Just one last thing about Shirley Walker.
Oh, we're not going to stop talking about Shirley Walker.
Oh, okay, so...
There's more about that.
Okay, go on.
Because we've talked about the 89. So, between the 89 and 92, which one... I think I know what the answer is, but which one is your favorite out of the two?
I'm just going to slightly change the answer a little bit. It's Mask of the Phantasm. Mask of the Phantasm.
Out of those two films.
Yeah, no, but you were saying out of 92, which is Batman the Animated Series.
No, sorry. What I meant was Batman 89 and then Batman Returns.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah.
I mean, probably Returns.
Yeah,
because it's got a bit more character, and there's no Prince in there, and the Prince stuff I think really dates it. I'm not saying it's bad, but it does really date the film.
But I think when you actually watch these two films, the music sets the tone. Well, obviously the music sets the tone for most movies, but I think the second one just felt darker to me. And the subject matter and everything was a teensy bit darker. I mean, the first one, obviously, the Joker is a psychopath and does psychopath things, but especially with the Selena Kyle stuff, I think It was quite dark.
It was very much like a dark fairy tale, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Music.
yeah.
Fairy tale quality to
And
it.
the music, especially, it was Danny Elfman again, um, made me feel, even when I just listen to the soundtrack now, I feel like I'm in Gotham City. Whereas the first one that they worked on, I don't, when I listen to that, yes, it's similar, but it doesn't take me back to Gotham City. Whereas the Batman Returns,
Mm-hmm.
I'm there. I am in Selena Kyle's apartment, putting milk out for the kitten cats.
Mm-hmm. With the hell here sign.
Yeah, that I have in my bedroom, by the way. Um, there's a reason I love this music. I think that was like the first record that we bought, wasn't it?
Vinyl.
Yeah.
No, I got one of the films of music from the films of Marlon Brando. We saw it in a charity shop, so I picked that up years before.
Yes, and I bought Frank Sinatra one as well, so it was the third one. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I think we can move on to kind of the more after Batman and Batman Returns now, because I think there's.
This is the mistake I made. I already moved on from that when I was talking about Shirley Walker and her book, but okay.
Go to that thing so I can get it out of my head.
Okay.
Batman the Animated Series. And when I say Batman the Animated Series, I am putting a blanket over that. I'm talking about TMBA, Batman the Animated Series, Mask of the Phantasm.
Mm-hmm.
So those three in my mind they're not the same thing, but those are kind of together.
Mask of the Phantasm, it doesn't get any better than Mask
it really
of the Phantasm
doesn't.
in terms of Batman score. Just to refer back to that Shirley Walker interview again, she said at the time, this is in the early 2000s, that was her proudest accomplishment. The Phantasm score. She said she really got into the themes of the movie and she just really sunk her teeth into it and loved it. And I loved it too.
You know, things like there's this movie, I think I might have mentioned it before, but Imitation of Life. There are two separate versions of this movie, and I love both of them. I like the original more because obviously I love black and white movies. But around that sort of time, from like the 40s to maybe like the mid 60s, when you were watching a blockbuster movie or just a dramatic movie with tragedy in it, and I say tragedy because you need to say that. When you watch it, you feel it. You go from a certain scene of somebody being happy, and then you see that tragedy happen, and with the music, you start to feel it as well. And it took me back to a lot of those older movies when I watched Mask of the Phantasm and I hear the soundtrack. I mean, not the last song in it.
I never even told you.
Just the music, it took me on a journey. And I love the fact that Shirley Walker understood the assignment. And she not only wanted you to have like a visual experience by the beautiful people that made the visuals, she wanted to take you on an actual cinematic journey.
Yes.
And that is exactly what she did.
Yes. I mean, basically, at the time, Warner Brothers had a big budget for animation. And so she took advantage of that by hiring a big orchestra to do the kind of score that you might have seen in the old classic Warner Brothers animated features of the past. And yeah, she did fantastic things. So she won an Emmy for her score for Robin's Reckoning. She was nominated for Feet of Clay, I think part 2. Might have been just Feet of Clay in general, but I think it was part 2. Funnily enough, I read in the soundtrack that got released probably about 15 years ago now, there's a little booklet with like snippets from interviews with Shirley Walker. She said that she found scoring Feet of Clay Part 2 to be the most difficult thing she had ever worked on. But she was so proud of it that she submitted it for consideration for an Emmy and was pleased to have been nominated. She would have preferred to have won, of course, but she was a nominee. I've kind of lost my train of thought, Mary, so you need to intervene.
I'm just stuck on the fact that when you talk about Batman the animated series, I think of three people.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're like, oh, what are not three people, but three different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about Shirley Walker. That's first and foremost when I think about it because I hear it first before the thought crosses my mind. I can hear it, and then I think of the deep, dark, beautiful voice, Kevin Conroy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to say Bruce Timm, but it's not Bruce Timm. It's
the art style.
Yeah.
Well, for the character designs,
Yeah.
everyone followed his kind of instructions, so
Yeah,
it would be fair to say it's the Bruce Timm art style.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest. I think of Bruce Timm because I'm a huge fan of the original Harley Quinn. It's a very very important part of my life, and I think of that. So yeah, those three people, and without one of those people, or without one of those things, it wouldn't be what it is today.
Oh yeah, like imagine. Okay, next time you watch a scene from Batman the Animated Series that's got this grand, sweeping, wonderful orchestral music. Like, let's say on Leather Wings, the blimp scene where Batman gets dragged through the Gotham skyline by Man-Bat, and they go do like that panning shot around the blimp. Play some generic music from Scooby-Doo or the Flintstones or even one of the earlier Batman TV shows. Play that music and see if it hits the same way. It doesn't. You can't attribute Batman the Animated Series success to just one person.
No.
It's
directors as well.
Yep, that's right. Even you can't even attribute it to just one director. It's down to the combination of all of them. It's all of the perfect ingredients mixed together to make this wonderful thing that burnt its way into my brain as a child. And I'm sure many of you listening, it's burnt into your brains in a positive way as well. If the voice acting hadn't been as good, if it had been traditional cartoon voice acting, would it be as ingrained in us as it is? Maybe, probably not. If the art style was perhaps more traditional, in terms of like overly designed muscle characters like you saw in He-Man or G.I. Joe, or even X-Men, would it still be as ingrained? Probably not. But anyway, out of all of the BTAS music, the Mask of the Phantasm score is my favourite.
I do. I think I agree. I know I have my little bits and pieces of, like the Man-Bat episode.
Yeah, on Leather Wings.
Yeah. I think it's probably because it was the first one that was shown in the States anyway.
Cat and the Claw Part 1 was the first one.
Are you sure? It was the first one that I saw when it first came out. So in my head, I'm like, that's the first one. Mm-hmm. I remember watching it, and I was playing with my Barbies. It was Magic Earring Barbie, I believe, with the matching Ken doll, by the way, with the mesh shirt. And I say this, by the way, to make it a point that I loved these Barbie dolls, but then I heard the music, and I literally would always have, my brother and I would have the TV on, and both of us, I don't know what he was doing, but we were both in the same room. We both ended up at different points just sitting there and just finishing the episode without, playing with our toys. And I can't think of, well, the only other thing I can think of doing that was with Spawn, but that was a different circumstance. It took a lot for something to take my attention away from what I was doing when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And something like the Power Rangers and stuff like that, just being on in the background, never did it for me. But when Batman came on, I was like, yeah, you can turn that up. You could keep the volume on. And that was a big thing in my life, is you can keep the volume on. Because when I was a kid, I liked having the TV on, but at very low volume when I was playing with my Barbies. But when something like that came on, that wasn't the only thing, but when that came on, I was like, yeah, you can turn it up. Because you had to physically stand up, go to the TV, and turn the little tuny thing on our black and white TV. Yeah. Anyway.
So, shall we move on to the next bit of Batman music, which is Elliot Goldenthal's work on Batman Forever and Batman and Robin? I think he's got a very...
need to talk about that.
We could mention it briefly.
No, I'm joking. Because there's a comment, a little thing I'm going to talk about before we talk about the latest Batman film. So when you get to like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and I think, was there another one?
No. Well, unless you're counting Batman Begins and so on, but that's
no, that's different. You have the Kiss song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kiss from a Rose, you mean?
Yes.
Not the song by Kiss.
No, not because I don't know anything.
I was going to say Batman with a Kiss soundtrack. That would hit differently.
Yes, that would hit very differently. The Seal song of "Kiss from a Rose." I loved that song when it came. I still love that song. It comes on my Spotify sometimes, doesn't it? When we're in the car.
Yeah, it
does. I can't think. I went and I looked as well, and I went through the soundtrack on my Spotify, and I cannot remember anything else that was on there other than wasn't one of the characters sang a little bit, didn't they?
In Batman Forever? Don't think so.
No, they didn't sing. Never mind, they didn't sing. I'm thinking of Arnold Schwarzenegger saying something.
No, that was Batman and Robin.
Okay, yeah, whatever. See,
you might be thinking of that the Poison Ivy scene where she's dressed as a big pink gorilla and they're auctioning her off with a bunch of like half-naked muscle men.
No, it was a Mr. Freeze thing.
Yeah, but Mr. Freeze breaks in at the end.
Okay, yeah, that might be it then.
But it was just like this weirdly homoerotic auction of a date with Poison Ivy.
I'd pay for a date with Poison Ivy. Well,
yeah, you would pay in the long run, but
because Uma Thurman. It was Uma Thurman, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Uma Thurman.
But in terms of the music, solid. I think it's a very recognisable theme. You know, the dun 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 dun. Much lighter.
Just like with most of the like copyrighted songs, or like they're all copyrighted, but the like poppy songs in there. I think this one is the one that I remember the most because of the Kiss song. Yes, Party Man is there, proud, everything. But Prince is going to be Prince of Prince, you know.
There was also the U2 song, Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me.
We don't care.
And then there was Smashing Pumpkins on Batman and Robin, but I can't remember what the song was called.
Again, sorry if you're a U2 fan. It's just, if you grew up in the 90s, you probably get this. There's nothing wrong with their music. It is just, I had to listen to them on Kiss FM. If you're ever in Oklahoma, in Midwest City, Oklahoma City area, Kiss FM, I think it was 98.9. Every time a U2 song came out, it was like, oh, we're going to play this. And 5 songs later, we're going to play this other song again and again and again. They did that a lot with U2. So I unfortunately have that kind of thought. And then Apple decided to basically do the same thing. So I don't hate U2. I got really fed up with it because of the radio stations.
Should we move on to the Christopher Nolan Batman movies then?
We can do.
So the music was provided by Hans Zimmer, and here's a little fact that I'm sure most of you know. Hans Zimmer worked very closely with Shirley Walker and was the synthesizer player for Mask of the Phantasm soundtrack. So he's got a credit in Mask of the Phantasm. So he's graduated to doing the music for Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. I have to say...
We forgot something.
What have we forgotten?
Between that, we forgot Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond comes under BTS.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
In my mind, yeah. And it's a lot of the same people. And Shirley Walker did win an Emmy for Batman Beyond as well. So maybe I could have mentioned it.
Yeah, because when I'm dancing at the juice bar in my head, I'm like, I can't play the music, obviously, right now because of copyright.
I will say one thing about Batman Beyond. So the soundtrack for season 1 and season 2 is on YouTube for free now. I might link to it if I remember. The season 1 soundtrack was way more experimental. And by season 2, I get the feeling that perhaps the budget was cut, or that perhaps they didn't have as much time as they would like. And it was still good, don't get me wrong. I love the Earth Mover score. It's really great.
Yeah, that was great.
With the electric guitar.
Yeah.
But I feel like the season 1 score was way more adventurous and unusual. Like if you listen to any of the music from the Shriek episode, the first one, I think it was actually called Shriek. There's like a vocal track in one of the tunes. It's like boom ba dum ba dum bum dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum. Just a guy doing that in the background. It was probably like Michael McQuistion or something, just doing that into a microphone. But they didn't do anything like that in the later seasons.
Yeah, let's talk about Hans.
Okay, so Hans Zimmer, I think his Batman score, I mean, obviously it's good, but the tune itself is not actually very memorable.
It's not iconic. Oh God, I don't. It's the ick. Ugh.
It had a very distinct feel, but it was kind of difficult to hum, you know? And the same, you know, Shirley Walker's music is so bombastic. And in fact, even just saying Shirley Walker's music, I reckon most people listening will probably be able to start hearing some of it in their heads. It was, if you say Hans Zimmer's Batman theme tune, I have to concentrate for a little while to even just get any of it playing there. Maybe that's just a me thing, but
I have opinions.
Of course.
And I'm gonna speak them now. I think I love Hans Zimmer. Like, I believe Interstellar and Inception.
And his Wonder Woman theme.
Yes, obviously, we'll get to that. But I just feel that this soundtrack was not great. I mean, I didn't love, and I'm honest, I did not love these 3 movies. And I still think The Dark Knight is one of the most overrated movies. And I think that because of the things that happened around that time. But I just don't like that set of movies as much. And they don't make me feel the way that the Keaton Batman did, or the Kevin Batman, or the Ben Batman, or the Arpats Batman.
So I think it was a very deliberate choice, because Christopher Nolan wanted to make more grounded, air quote, realistic movies. But
he wanted to make a Batman movie, but he wanted to make it realistic.
Yeah. I think that's what he wanted to do. Okay. I mean, out of all the superheroes, Batman is probably the most believable one, apart from the fact that it's a billionaire trying to do good for the world. Badum-tsh.
Yeah.
But the music is often, it kind of distracts from the scene. Even with Shirley Walker's music, it's often the music is a little distracting. But it's so bombastic. Cohesive. Yeah, it's cohesive. Absolutely.
And the Nolan ones, and my as someone who is very, I can think of like 5 things at the same time. They always don't. They're not always having the same conversation. But when I watch BTAS, it kind of like everything makes sense. All those conversations are they're getting to the same point at the same time. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's Hans' fault.
No.
We're on first name basis now. Either slap me in the face.
That's a joke.
Yeah, obviously it was a joke. I don't think Hans would slap anybody. What was I saying?
You were saying that the music in Shirley Walker stuff is very cohesive. And Zimmer stuff.
So we're all having the same conversations, and we get there in the end. When I watch the Nolan Batman films, I have to be honest with you. I think because there were a lot of things that weren't right with me in that. Christian Bale, great, awesome, wonderful, but I think it wasn't as, I keep saying cohesive, but it's just, I just didn't think it all worked together. And that's how I feel. And I'm not going to talk about like the actual like characters in it or whatever. That's for another day. But the music just did not hit the way they had this beautiful, epic thing that could guide them into something, because you have the 89 Batman, and then you have Batman Returns, and then you have BTAS, and that's very cohesive. And then you get to the other DCAU stuff that involves like Batman, and it really works together. But when you get to this one, it's like I was disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Because as someone who likes Hans Zimmer, I was just like, meh.
Yeah, but I think it was a very deliberate creative choice, because if you remember Batman Begins, it was very stylish, that one, very brown and dark and rainy.
I can't remember it.
The other ones, The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, they went for a more realistic approach by filming it all in Chicago, and all of the character from the city was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they just focused on the character of Batman and the villain of the film, or the villains, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the music was kind of pared back a bit as well, so that they wouldn't outshine the character work done with, with Batman or the Joker or Bane or whoever. And yeah, I think the film does suffer for it a little bit. Now, as you said, the music isn't bad by any means.
No, it's not bad. Definitely not bad. It's just, it could have been, a Batman thing, like anything that is Batman related, in my opinion, because of the Keaton films, mm-hmm. and the Kevin animation, those were so, it was a blockbuster in your head, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
And then you like I said, you go from all of that to the spectacular music with the spectacular writing and everything like that, to this. And it really seemed, I'm going to say the word, contrived. It seemed contrived. And we lost about 80 subscribers.
Well, the funny thing is, the reason why I think that this was a creative decision is because if you look at Hans Zimmer's work on Batman v Superman,
mm-hmm.
that was...
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe now's the time. Yeah, why don't you move to that now?
So I am a huge fan of I'm a huge fan of the Henry Cavill Superman. Absolutely love it. I love Ben Affleck Batman. Did not think I would, but loved it. And I can watch those movies over and over again, because it just, everything, that conversation is back. That familiar conversation that I'm having in my head when I watch these things is back. And again, we're getting to those. But I'm going to talk about this right now because it's in my head. Oh, Is She With You?
The Wonder Woman track.
I felt like when I watched that scene and I heard it, I remember I was literally, I think you were on this side, but you were on my left side, and I literally like put my hand on him and I
squeezed.
Yes, I heard this and I just squeezed because I was like, oh my God, I love it. And I felt connected, and I felt so like empowered because of the music.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get that with the Nolan ones, but I was so happy that, again, this is the same person, the same composer that's doing it, and it just shows you what different direction can be, and how you can have something like the Batman Begins and stuff, and then you can have Batfleck, if you will, like that era, and it is just, to me, it's gritty, it's dark, it's absolutely beautiful. It reminds me of like a dark ballet,
mm-hmm.
because you could see ballerinas dancing to this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how I feel with the Shirley Walker music and the Danny Elfman music. And we are back to that with these films. Yeah. And as you can tell, I'm very excited about them.
Yeah.
And Is She With You? I think that's the full title of it. Is just, will always be in my head when I want to amp myself up. Because it, like I said, it's empowering, and I felt something that I hadn't felt with some of the Nolan ones.
Mm-hmm. I don't really have much else to add other than what you said about the Hans Zimmer stuff with the Snyderverse stuff. So
then we're to the
Batman, the latest one. So with Michael Giacchino, I had to look up
Yeah.
how to pronounce his name. I'm terrible at pronouncing Italian names. Terrible at pronouncing anything, frankly. But
So I love, and I was talking to Luke about this in the car. I'm going to take over for a moment,
Yeah.
another moment. I love the fact that you can see which generation, you know what generation a Batman film is in with the music that they add to it. Not necessarily like the orchestra music or the like the film score or whatever, but like in Batman 89, you had Party Man. In Batman Forever, you had Seal. And U2 was that one?
Yeah.
And then in The Batman, you have one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Nirvana song.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize this is a freaking Batman movie. It doesn't have to have like that generation thing, but it does. And when I heard that, I was so relieved. And then I heard the rest of it. Like the background music, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be good.
So the thing that I think is exceptional about Michael Giacchino's score is the way that he very clearly references everything that came before. There's elements of the 66 Batman theme in there. There's elements of Danny Elfman stuff, like particularly the Catwoman music. It sounds like the music from Batman Returns with the strings.
Yes.
There's elements of Shirley Walker's. And
Meow? Something Meow is the Catwoman music.
Oh, is it? No, I was more thinking about, the Selena Kyle apartment music where, when she comes back to the apartment after she's had her head smashed in.
Yeah.
I think it's like is it the birth of Catwoman or something?
Oh, no, I was talking about the newer ones called Meow something.
Oh, is it? Okay. I haven't really looked at the score for this film, so I don't know what any of the tracks are called. But it's there's also elements of Hans Zimmer's work in there as well. I feel like it's just like a perfect melting pot, of all of the Batman music that came before. And Nick Arundel, who did the score for Batman Arkham City, the video game, he did something very similar, where that score for that game, particularly the title sequence music, was very similar to Hans Zimmer's work on the Dark Knight movies. But he gave it more of like a recognizable tune, like something Danny Elfman might do. So that was a nice blend of Danny Elfman and Hans Zimmer. Whereas Michael Giacchino has gone further, and he's just grabbed everything Batman related and chucked it in and made something new.
But the thing is, it didn't feel forced. It was it was smooth. And when I'm not talking about like smooth jazz, I love smooth jazz, by the way, but it was smooth in the way that he did it. It wasn't as obvious as it could have been. And I loved that, because when you're watching it, you like Luke said, you can like hear something and then you're like, oh, it takes you back to the other movie, but it's the remnants that are there, but you still are hooked to this.
Yeah, and it's something that it's not going to apply to everybody, particularly if you haven't watched those other films or heard that music before. But for people that are invested in it, it adds another layer.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very strong. I really like his Batman theme tune, the dun 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 dun. It's like a funeral dinner.
That's the thing. It is literally like you're coming out of a dark church, like a dark cathedral on a dark rainy day, and you see the hearse outside.
Yeah. But towards the end of the film, the music gets lighter and there's more instruments involved. It's basically indicative of Batman's growth as a person. So he's not just there to intimidate and frighten people. He's there to inspire people and save people and help people.
Again, it is a journey.
Yeah.
And that conversation, well, I keep saying conversation because that's how I think. But that journey in your head starts in so many different places. You have so many different characters. But in the end, it's all one conversation. And I believe that another person that understood the assignment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can definitely tell he gave his kudos to the people that got him where he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that as in got him in the position that he's in, but to the point that he's doing a Batman movie, and he is giving everyone, it's like a big thank you to them, but also it has him in it as well with that dun dun dun. And I wanted to go into this movie. I mean, I like Robert Pattinson, and I love Zoe Kravitz, as we know. But I just thought, oh, okay, it's gonna be another thing, because I was disappointed about not seeing Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill again. But I think as soon as I heard something in the way, and then I saw the scene and everything, I was just like, this is brilliant. And I don't say that lightly, because I don't think, I am very picky about the music that I listen to. It's not for everybody's taste, but I'm also picky about movies. And when you meld those two together, there aren't that many movies, in my opinion, that I can say that about, they're brilliant. But it took me on a journey through my own life to that point. Without that person they've never met me.
Mm-hmm.
I saw myself watching a movie with my stepdad, which was Batman Returns. I saw myself playing in my room watching BTAS with my brother. I saw me watching Justice League and Batman Beyond in my bedroom while talking to Luke on the computer. And then I saw little other scenes in my life just by watching and listening to this. And I'm glad that it exists.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never really thought about that until, I mean, I've thought about that, but I've never actually thought about how lovely it actually was and why it made me feel those things until you actually put it out, put it into the space,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anything else? Caped Crusader!
Yeah, Caped Crusader. So Frederick Weidman, or Wiedmann, depending on...
Wiedmann.
Yeah, well, he's German, so it's probably Wiedmann. So his score, I remember actually being slightly disappointed in the music in Caped Crusader when I first watched it, because I was expecting more of the bombastic style music, but it was not that at all. The music was far more subdued, and it was very much like Bernard Herrmann's music for basically any Hitchcock film that he worked on.
You know what? That's right.
That was a very deliberate creative choice there. They didn't want the music to distract and take away from the visuals on screen. That doesn't mean that the music wasn't good, because it was excellent.
I thought it was really great.
I particularly liked the music in the second episode when Clayface is giving his monologue about all the wicked things he's done. And you just have that music just slowly building in the background, and it reaches its height, and then the actress, whose name I've forgotten, interrupts and is like, I don't find any of this believable, Basil. You're trying too hard.
Yeah. And also, I think I mentioned this when I first saw it. It's some of the chase scenes.
Yeah.
I again, for me to actually comment on music in a TV show nowadays, when it's not like a song or something, it's a lot. And when I was watching one of the first the chase scenes that they have, I was taken back to BTAS, but it felt refreshing, and I enjoyed that a lot, because it took me back, but it became its own thing.
Yes.
So I don't know if that was intentional, where the way that it started from that first episode to where you kind of want to get people in, and then by the time you obviously see the end, it's not completely different, but it's very, it's different enough that that it was made for Caped Crusader, not BTAS.
Yes, it was very much a different thing, and I think I think the reason why some people have had negative reactions to Caped Crusader is they've gone into it expecting it to be, just the next episode of Batman the Animated Series.
But it's not.
No, it's very much its own thing and very different, and intentionally so.
And I like it.
Yeah, I love it too. I think it's really good. It's never going to replace BTAS as my favourite. Never. I don't think anything ever could.
It's not. It is a different thing, and
yeah,
and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think most people listening will agree with what we're saying as well. But the music is still very good as well. It's just different. That's all.
Yeah, I want them to bring out a vinyl of it. Ooh. Because that could you imagine the graphics on that as well?
The graphic? Oh, you mean the illustrations?
Yeah,
the cover. Yes. Yeah. It would probably be like the Batman from the title sequence, where he's like slightly covering his face with his cape and he's looming over the city. That would probably be it.
Yeah.
Ooh, Mondo, put out Batman Caped Crusader soundtrack. Mondo, I know you don't listen to these, but hey, make it so.
Yeah, and Warner Brothers.
Yeah, Warner Brothers.
Batwoman.
And Todd McFarlane released some Caped Crusader action figures, for God's sake. He already had a weasel from Creature Commandos ready before that show came out, so come on.
I don't think he's seen my video.
Oh, I think he dreams about it, Mary. I think he's going, I need to do what Mary says.
Nobody ever says that. Not even my cats.
All right, so
I think this has been a long episode. But it's going to be even longer because we're going to get to the comments now.
Well, do you want to just say, and I guess we've been saying it as we've been going along, but what are your favourites? Let's narrow it down to one. There's only ever going to be one more Batman soundtrack ever. Which one from the ones that have come before are you going to choose to exist and the rest are consigned to the...
It's always going to... my all-time favorite's always going to be BTAS.
So Big Shirley Walker, Big Shirl, she wins. Okay, I agree.
But if I had to pick from a movie...
Mask of the Phantasm with Big Shirl.
I would probably do Batman v Superman.
Interesting, okay. Oh, probably on the strength of that Wonder Woman theme.
Yeah, and, I liked it. But the Batman... movie one, the 2022 one, I think it was 22 when it came out. It's really great as well. But the BTAS is always gonna win.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So with that, should we move on to the comments?
Yeah, because it's almost my bedtime, by the way.
Yeah, I know, doing this late again. All right, so first we have Zehonaut10 who says 2629. Good kids shows, whether they're animated or live action, help kids learn without treating them like they're stupid.
Word.
Then there are bad ones where you get the sense that the people making them think kids are particularly brain dead, like Peppa Pig, which through Peppa's brother George teaches kids the awful lesson, if you're not getting your own way, just cry and your parents will give up whenever you want.
I have never seen an episode of Peppa Pig, and I will never see an episode of Peppa Pig intentionally.
Well, there we go. I mean, I agree. It's one of the reasons why we like BTAS so much, because it didn't talk down to the audience.
It was sophisticated.
All right, so next we have Harry Flew TV, who says, back when cartoons actually had balls and didn't talk down to their target audience.
Yes!
It's almost like I'd read his comment. I hadn't actually read it before this, but anyway.
Oh, I thought you were saying you had read it. You just thought that's what he was going to say.
No, that is what he said. He basically just paraphrased what I had said at the end of the last comment. But anyway, I swear if a cartoon isn't overly vulgar and gross for adult audiences, then modern kids' cartoons, apart from stuff like Phineas and Ferb, The Ghost and Molly McGee, and the new Spider-Man show, will talk down to kids and pander with shows like Coco Melon. Yuck. Even most children's movies are like that, with the exception of the Spider-Verse movies. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, The Wild Robot, and even the Sonic films are getting more and more mature. Hashtag make kids' cartoons mature again.
I'm going to mention something.
Go on then.
I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
You are, but go ahead.
When I moved over here, so did some other family members of our family. They had kids.
They had a child.
These stuff that this kid watched, or that was just on TV. I got to a point when I was in college, and I would hear this music. I would stay later at college, and I wouldn't get out of college until 9 sometimes because I was so pissed off. And I'm gonna say it.
It's the hot dog song from Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate that song. She even had this like robotic, I mean, to be honest with you, it reminded me of a puppet as well, so I hated that too. But this stupid Mickey Mouse thing that just danced and did the song, and I really wanted to take it and put it out into the busy street, but I did not do that because it was not my toy. But
yeah. And she loved it.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I think there's still a little bit of resentment there.
Yeah, it has been 15 years and you're still talking about it. But anyway, continuing Harry's comment, he says, I swear kids these days don't know how great the 90s were. I may not have been born in that time, but I've watched cartoons like Beat-Ass and the 90s Spider-Man show on VHS, DVD and on streaming to get the gist of how cartoons were made back then. Even Disney movies like Beauty and the Beast had a backbone and didn't try to pander to the target demographic. I miss when cartoons actually had something to say and weren't just trying to cash in on the audience. Well, you would have hated the 80s. The cartoons back then were bloody terrible. Next, we have Lowell Lucas Jr.
Hello.
There's nothing to fear because Totally Schway is here. They're here to talk tunes, the ones that bring delight. They are the terrors that flap in the night, the ones who review episodes, who give you give you fright. But don't you worry your pretty little head because Totally Schway is here. That's all I said.
I feel seen.
Yeah.
Does he know what I'm like when I sleep? Because I start by like being in like this really comfy spot, and then all of a sudden it's just like I'm fighting crime underneath my pillows because I toss and turn. So I feel seen, but that's okay. If anybody wants to watch me sleep, I'm sorry. It's very boring.
He says, hey all, thanks for the great coverage and well wishes, including the cool folks in the comments section. Thank you. I did have some scares as my eyes became blurry and cloudy, so I've had to take breaks and plan on seeing the doctor soon. Also great to hear you're both covering 90s tunes, and as a fellow 80s kid it brings me such delight. I want to apologise to you, Luke, as I wrote a big Mikey P tone below, so please have your favourite drink ready to clear your throat. Oh no, I wish I'd read this ahead of time.
Drinking mine just in front of you.
Excuse me. I'd recommend some green tea with honey and lemon. To answer you, Mary, Gundam, pronounced Gundam like bubble gum, I think I did it right, is a series. There are iterations that connect as a whole story, while others are standalone series. Now on to the 7-paragraph tome. Okay, here we go. Back in the dark days of television, the evil executives from the Fire Nation really didn't understand what kids wanted in cartoon shows, only what they think they wanted. Many have shared that they thought kids wanted Pow Zip, woo, and Ric Flair, and thought every show should have a talking dog or some kind of animal sidekick. The exact same executives pushed Batman into using Batmite and even tried Ace in Beat-Ass, only to be used in Beyond in such a great way. This influence continued in the 80s, where we got the PSAs, so that's public service announcements. One thing I will say about them was some of the ways they were handled could be sound or hilarious, like with He-Man, who felt like a friend talking to you, giving you some advice, R.I.P. John Owen, versus Transformers or G.I. Joe, where a talking car warned you about crossing the street, or a grown man in a scuba suit creepily coming out of the water warning you about water safety. The intentions were noble, but just hilarious at times. Even Seth MacFarlane would have Flint coming out of the bathroom stall to give Chris Griffin some advice, all complete with G.I. Joe playing fanfare. We saw that. It was G.I. Jose, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was quite fun.
I love G.I. Jose.
I think what really happened, what really helped 90s cartoons become such a wonderful wealth of viewing luxury was the desire by creators to not want to hold kids' hands and give them great stories that influenced and inspired them. One such influencer would be Bruce Timm. He worked on the Bakshi cartoons, Filmation shows, Mighty Mouse, Bernie and Cecil, to Black Star and He-Man, with wonderful writing of Paul Dini. Both of them would team up on with other great talents and be a part of Warner's Animation, working on beloved shows such as Tasmania, Tiny Toons Adventures, and a little show that involved a rich boy in dark pajamas, which is called Animaniacs. I added that part, I'm sorry. Then we had Seth MacFarlane worked on 90s Hanna-Barbera projects. Many were new projects getting greenlit to be future Hanna-Barbera hits, such as Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, and more. There, Seth, Butch Hartman, Gennady Tartakovsky, and other great creators got to mix their favourite cartoons, movies, anime influences, and comics into their works with great efficiency. It's why you get episodes such as Dial M for Monkey fighting the Galactic Barbecuer, Eater of Worlds with his Herald the Silver Spooner, NRFB, or having the literal Avengers living as roommates, hiring Batman to do their plumbing at the innocent age of 30. What was really great about these creators were they wanted to push the narrative into a mature direction, really showing you could make mature stories that were truly endearing and can easily be emotionally driven. I greatly appreciate it. Spawn definitely got that memo. Heck, even the Simpsons writers knew this too and created many memorable episodes with timeless gags that are still recited to this day, many of whom would branch off and contribute their talents to other shows such as The Critic, Duckman, King of the Hill, Dilbert, Venture Brothers, and even Gravity Falls. So finally, in closing, to Mary, yes, heavy metal was an 80s film, and to Luke, Homer sleeping in the nude granting him sexual powers was only a half-truth. Take care. Yeah, he needed the plastic sheet, according to Kent Brockman. I've lost my place. Take care, everyone, and thank you for making my Sunday wonderful.
Oh, we love you all.
There's another comment here from Zehanaut10 who says that 1 hour, 18 minutes and 42 seconds. Jesus Christ, our podcasts are getting long, aren't they? Yeah, it was Chloe's actress Alison Mack who was in the cult. Makes any Chloe scene hard to watch now, in reference to our Smallville conversation.
I was looking that up as we were doing that. I was like, oh, that's a shame.
Yes, very much a shame. Right, so next we have David Carney who says, hi Mary and Luke. You got first billing again. It's always enjoyable listening to Totally Schway. Before starting to listen, I was in a gaming group playing Top Football Manager 2025, where I play under the name Clark and the group is called Nightbird. Just lost 3-1. Boo! Some of my favourite 90s cartoons are Beatas, X-Men, Spider-Man and Superman the Animated Series. Hope you both have a good week.
So I'm assuming that's real football and not American football.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Next we have Doc Widener, who says, thank goodness you're here.
Thank goodness he's here.
You still haven't played that, by the way, Mary. Maybe you should play that this week.
Maybe.
I'm still not sure how they got away with it, but I pushed this back a bit earlier to Robotech. I know some people have issues with Robotech because it took 3 unrelated shows and edited them into one overarching story. The deaths are what I cannot figure out how they got past the censors. It starts with the death of Roy Fokker. That's an unfortunate name. He was mortally injured in a battle. It has been a while since I've seen the episode, and I also have the added confusion of the novelisation stuck in my brain. They were great. They were written by Jack McKinney, who actually was a pen name of authors James Luceno and Brian Daly, who wrote them together. They were published by Del Rey Books. Daly wrote the Han Solo book, some of the first Now Legends Star Wars books back around the time The Empire Strikes Back came out. Luceno is mostly known for Star Wars. I really enjoyed his Darth Plagueis novel, which I believe is Now Legends as well. He has written some newer canon for Now stuff. So I think the blood, I recall, was the description in the book, and it was only implied in the show. In the show, his ground crew saw the blood and reacted in shock, but we didn't see the actual blood, just the reaction. I think the book makes it less ambiguous. I guess that's how they got around the blood in the show, but he still died. In his girlfriend's quarters, strumming at a guitar. I would have been 15, and this would have a profound effect on me. Here is a show that looked like Voltron, and it took the main character's mentor and killed him off. It wasn't like Roy only showed up in a few episodes, but he was in about every episode up until his death. And that wasn't the only death. The same main character, Rick, gets promoted as a couple of guys assigned to him, and one of them also doesn't survive a mission later in the season. Not to mention most of the bridge crew of the SDF-1, the giant spaceship they were all living on, were killed near the end of Season 1. I think the show suffered some because of the highly serialized nature, so you had to be dedicated to follow along. But for me, that show set the standard for what animation could do. It didn't have the broader cultural impact of BTS or X-Men, but I do think its serialization and higher stakes did impact animators who grew up watching it. Duckman is a favourite of the missus. She also likes Daria. 1988 is the year I graduated high school. I adored Animaniacs. It also helped if you had a liberal arts education. So another related strength/weakness was it was relatively timely in its humour. MST3K has this issue as well. At the time, the joke was funny because the target was in the public zeitgeist, but to a modern audience, it falls flat. And South Park, which you just got to, also suffers from this. Christopher Walken. Let me throw out the Severance on Apple TV recommendation. He doesn't have a big role, but it is a memorable one and much different from most of his other roles. Yes, we liked him in Severance, didn't we?
Yeah, we need to watch the second series because I think is it finished now?
I don't think so.
Oh, we like to watch shows when all the episodes are there because I think with my ADHD, if I have to wait a week, I'm never gonna watch it fully again.
Mary, did you ever watch any PBS kid shows growing up, in particular the fantastic, in my opinion, game show, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Oh my God, I reference that so much, don't I? Yes, I have. I did.
No, I've never seen them.
Yeah, I watched because in my school you had, I think once or twice a month you would go to the library for media time, and you would either watch Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, or I think it's Arthur is what it's called. And I really liked
Arthur the Aardvark. Is he an aardvark? No, he's like a little mole guy.
I don't know what he is, but
he's got a yellow jumper and glasses.
It was okay. I didn't mind Arthur, but it wasn't.
It's a very wholesome show.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I went and watched, but like sought out to watch. Yeah. But Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Absolutely. Yeah, and literally, like I referenced that in my real life. I don't even know if Luke understands the reference sometimes, but I do. Mm-hmm. I reference it at least once a week.
So continuing the comment.
Yes, that's a yes, by the way.
Yeah, you said yes several times. Eric Cartman, the Joker, Walter White, especially after his former biotechnology partners gave him the option not involving him cooking. There are a host of characters people embrace that don't make sense to me. I will say I like the respect my authority bit when he was riding a big wheel and being a police officer abusing his position. I haven't watched it much for probably 15 years. I recall Butters being the only kid I thought was a good egg.
Yeah.
I liked his Doctor Doom alter ego, Professor Chaos. Mary, shirtless Michael Rosenbaum, if you keep watching Smallville, so there you go.
Have to be honest, I'm gonna say this. I'm not a thirst trap type of person. Because
try harder, Michael Rosenbaum.
It's like last night, I think it was last night, I was like in bed and I couldn't get to sleep, so I was looking at Instagram or whatever, and I saw a picture of Jason Momoa.
I remember what you said to me now.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I mean, I'll reword it, but you basically said, how can he be so muscular and so out of shape?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this happens to some of us.
I mean, if you've ever seen a picture of me, you'd be like, oh my God, why? She has no authority on that.
Michael Madsen has a similar physique. He looks like he's a big muscular guy, or at least he did in like the early 2000s. But now, well, he's old now. But
Jason Momoa is like really in shape.
And yet not at the same time. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing.
I would love that body. I'd love to be that skinny. But I looked at it, but it's, again, I think it's my neurodivergence. I see the things that are like behind the thirst trap, and I'm like, oh, it's a sunny, overcast day, kind of. Wonder what the temperature was, and then I'm just like, okay.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see if we can get through the rest of this comment. Without too many interruptions, please, Mary, unless it's...
No, I will interrupt.
Yeah, I know you will. I recall a CD encyclopedia coming with 386 PCs in the 90s, or maybe it was the 486s, because more of those came with CD drives. You would get the Microsoft Encarta CD and maybe AOL Prodigy of Sierra Online CDs. Of course, they got more insidious and included some of that on the image on the PC when they built it. Part of the reason I either built my own stuff or at least had custom builds that I would improve upon as opposed to getting a Dell or a Gateway, etc. Yes, Alison Mack, the blonde who played Chloe, was in The Cult. You looked it up. I really enjoyed her character, but get why the charm she had isn't there so much. Finished Superman the Animated Series and binged Beware the Batman after watching a few of Luke's videos. I may have listened more than watched, but I knew I had a timer since I heard it was leaving Max. I can see where the animation took a bit to get used to, and the serialized story might have hurt it at time of release. It seems a good model for streaming and not so much for kids' cable TV. Was perhaps most intrigued by the Gordon family. I plan to get to Justice League kind of a rewatch. I saw some of it back in the day, but not every episode. But there has been a lot of stuff the last week or so that has been on the back burner. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is interesting, especially since it's in an MCU-like universe with some clear differences, but many common threads like Civil War and the Sokovia Accords, though this Peter did not get pulled into the battle at the airport. Invincible. Both it and Spidey have dropped a bunch, and not all episodes, but I wish they'd spread stuff out a bit more. Severance, as I mentioned, as well as Mythic Quest. I'm not sure if Luke has seen or would like. Set at a MMORPG developer. I haven't seen it, but I am aware of it. Sometimes when a show's setting is something you know well, it is hard to suspend disbelief. I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons, not so much the third, but the fourth is better than the third so far. Have a good week, you two. I'm going to check that my comment from last week's Totally Schway is still there because of this timely Valentine's Day story. And yes, it was still there.
It was Encarta, by the way. I just looked that up. Yeah.
Okay, so the next comment is Mikey Part 2. Michael Andre Parlon using his backup.
Oh, intriguing.
He's been suspended again.
What's happened, Mikey P?
I know, we thought he'd changed his ways, but no. Anyway, he says, do you know what? Let's hope YouTube doesn't listen to this. They'll find out he's trying to circumnavigate a suspension.
We're talking about we're not talking about Michael Padon. We're talking about Mikey.
Yeah, it says Mikey Part 2. Mikey Le Deuxième. Anyway. Apologies late again. Have to make changes in the comment before it lands. Sorry, you know I'm joking. He knows I'm joking.
These guys.
4:58. To say something that's a good reason why X-Men and Spider-Man the animated series are still talked about while these are forgotten. 7:39. Though there are times when thematic plot recycling can become an effective plot beat and fascinating meta-narrative. Doesn't Captain Planet and the Planeteers have a coda in the OKKO Let's Be Heroes episode? The Simpsons is good, but if only it finished at season 8 or 9 or 10 or 11. Which one, Mikey?
Or
Make
20,
your mind up.
Or 30?
Well,
or
yeah.
85?
Futurama is arguably still the better show up to season 4. When it comes to Hanna-Barbera, their Tom and Jerry cartoons are hopefully easy to recommend still. I mean, yeah, they do still have some, like the mammy that's in it, but then they put the warnings up there, don't they, about that?
Yeah, I do, the Tom and Jerry things I do.
Unfortunately, home box office's animation plans never came to be, although they did make the live-action gems Band of Brothers and The Sopranos in return. In my opinion, the challenge of the gargoyles in Greg Weisman's Gargoyles felt more relatable and real than X-Men's Mutants. 29:51. The Tick gets a nod. That's Schway. If only it got a neat finale episode, though. That Elmira spin-off of Pinky and the Brain is nowadays deemed non-canon, though, and is thus skippable. To watch Aeon Flux or not watch Aeon Flux, that's the question. Mary loves Aeon Flux, as you know from the last episode, so watch it. Some watch South Park, but people like me watch Red vs. Blue up to season 14 instead. I'd like to think we're smarter for it. Mr. Freeze doesn't need no ice cape. Luke pronounced Gundam properly, Mary. However, there's a first. I pronounced something properly.
Well, you're talking to somebody that can't say her name properly sometimes, okay?
However, in quality terms, Pat Labor is better if underrated mecha anime, and Mobile Fighter G Gundam may be the best franchise show bar none.
I'll believe you.
56 minutes and 5 seconds. Not remotely what I meant. Ba-boom. 1 hour and 15 seconds. I shrug. I too appreciate the Fleischer Superman shorts. It's the later famous picture stuff that one must steer clear from. I don't see the similarities between Estas's Unity and Fallout's FEV. Give them time, the absolute DC comics, they're just getting started after all. Correct, they're only, 5 or 6 issues in? Yes. Now, we're on to Screen Wiper's comments. Now, he's actually broken it up into 3, but I'll read them in chronological order. So he says, at 33 minutes and 1 second, I really like Beavis and Butthead. You are forgiven. The 90s iteration of Beavis and Butthead could be a bit ropey, as the animation could be primitive and characters not fully fleshed out, but the newer stuff, basically anything made after the film Beavis and Butthead Do America, such as the series around 2010 and the current stuff, is really well written and funny AF. It's like how the first 2 or 3 seasons of South Park were hilarious at the time, but when watched today by anyone who's seen modern satirical South Park, it comes across as somewhat underdeveloped. 39 minutes and 40 seconds. South Park is great. I don't really watch anything from the early seasons anymore. It just isn't as well developed as the last 22 years have been. Great. I agree with Luke that a lot of the fans misunderstand the show, not seeing characters like Cartman as bad examples. bad example that he is, especially the anti-woke morons. South Park has always been woke AF. The first season had an episode about how stupid homophobia is, which was bold when it came out back in 1998. It's just that because South Park keeps its preaching subtle and does not rule out anybody from ridicule, the edgelords can't see it. Trust conservatives, to only see things at surface level with large helpings of confirmation bias. They do it to so many shows, often unaware that they themselves are the butts of the jokes and the villains of the narrative. It's neither animated nor was around in the 90s, which is superheroes, so Luke and Mary may watch it. The Boys is a fantastic example of something with loads of conservative fans who don't actually understand it somehow. I never got into Smallville, felt too much like Dawson's Creek with superpowers, and there were too many changes to the law, such as Clark growing up with Lex Luthor as a friend. Now that actually was in the Silver Age comics. Like Lex Luthor grew up in Smallville with Clark Kent, and he was friends with Clark Kent, but he hated Superboy. That was like one of the dramatic points. I wish that person that had described Smallville to me as like Dawson's Creek without the creek had used your explanation, Screenwiper, because well, yours is more accurate because there was a creek in the first episode. It's like she wasn't paying attention.
Huh?
I'm not talking about you, don't worry. Anyway, that's it for the comments. So, Jesus Christ, what are we talking about next time? I can't remember. Oh, yes, I can. I just mouthed it to Mary and she's looking at me like blankly, like, what? So next time, we're going to be talking about our favourite Lex Luthors.
Yes! I think we all know who my favorite one's going to be.
Michael Schway from Lois and Clark. He's your favourite. No need to check in next time.
Guys, I love you guys so much, and I hope you're having an incredible week. I'm gonna say this as well. I don't care if you're a conservative or if you're a Democrat or if you actually put ketchup in your ramen noodles. I love you, and I want you to know how truly great and seen and heard you make me feel, and I want to thank you for that. Okay, I take back the ramen and ketchup thing. I can't. Just get ramen noodles. Anyway, I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you guys next time. Toodles.